preschoolers, and we thought we were talking about how teens were bad. Advertising to teens. How does a 3-year-old even know? Can a 3-year-old even speak? What they say, 3-year-old? Meet Joe Camel, the cartoon that tricked kids to smoke. I'm tired of talking about it at this point, but like whenever people compare generations and whatever, I'm just like, bro, especially the boomers of society, it's just not the same. It's just mainly because of stuff like this. They literally had cartoons teaching you how to smoke or whatever back then. And the crazy thing is, these are the same running the political offices. They grew up in this generation, and it's just like, yeah, I know Gen Z is bad, but like stuff like this is just ridiculous. And I've always talked about it because when I made that Red 40 video, people still tell me like, yo, these things are approved or whatever, and I'm like, okay. They act like I'm not ever like, I don't have a choice anyways to consume Red 40. Me personally, I love consuming government tested chemicals. You know what I mean? I love consuming Red 40 oils, everything. It's amazing to me. But going back to it, I'm like, back then, like 70 years ago, they was literally advertising cigarettes with cartoons and everything. So you can't really say I'm on conspiracy theory timing. Can't say anything like that. And we had this. Anyways, let's get to the...
Meet Joe Camel, the mascot for Camel cigarettes. For those of you that don't know, he is by far one of the most controversial mascots in marketing history for one reason. He tricked kids into smoking cigarettes. There was loads of proof this was happening, from Camel cigarettes enticing children with toys, to creating a group of cartoon friends in the same fashion as Mickey Mouse, to internal documents from the company revealing top executive plans to market.
Wait, first let's look at the growing importance of the young adult in the cigarette market in 1960 something. This young adult market, the 14 and 24 age group, representing 21% of the population. As seen by this chart, they will represent 27% of the population in 1975. They represent 14. Bro, the thing is, y'all don't think, look, and that's exactly what I talk about with this Red 40 chemicals and all that. Y'all don't think. Of course, this is all in GTA and a conspiracy theory. You guys know how it goes. You guys don't think. And some study might not come out in the future saying like, some company did this, some company did that. Y'all really don't think that's gonna happen? Just saying. And they don't give a... You see, they was advertising to teenagers. Rated E for everyone.
Get to kids. As a result, the producer of Camel cigarettes, RJ Reynolds, was under fire for years by the US government, all while still promoting cigarettes to kids through their cartoon. There's a lot to unpack.
I'm surprised the government actually protested against it.
With the history of Joe Camel. So what better place to start than his origin in 1913. In 1913, Camel cigarettes were introduced to the world, and of course, they used camels as a part of their first marketing strategy. However, their mascot back then was a lot more tame than Joe Camel. The first camel mascot they used was pretty bland and went by the name Old Joe. Despite the unexciting appeal, Old Joe sprung Camel cigarettes into popularity and quickly made them one of the most popular cigarette brands in the US. However, by the 1950s, this success wouldn't last long, as other cigarette brands like Marlboro were quickly eating at Camel's market share. How are they doing this? By freshening up their look. In 1954, Marlboro introduced the Marlboro Man, a stunning new brand mascot that made Marlboro cigarettes look cool, way cooler than Camel cigarettes. Over the next decade, Marlboro began to
everything
take
back
over,
then was just about cowboys,
while Camel continued to struggle with their old grandfather-like image. Camel knew they needed to make a change to their old look before Marlboro took them down, which takes us to 1974. That year, RJ Reynolds introduced Joe Camel, a much more slick version of Old Joe. The character lacked many typical camel traits and essentially appeared as a muscular human with a camel's head. This new mascot would replace Old Joe.
Bad cuts.
Appeared as
they could have gave him a better cut, bro. This is not a... Even the camel was forced to get a buzz cut. So guess what I just learned, guys? 87% of you guys are not subscribed. That's like the biggest number out of any other YouTube I've ever seen. So do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. On the real though, like, please subscribe. I need to feed me and my family and my editor, so please do.
As a muscular human with a camel's head. This new mascot would replace Old Joe and become Camel cigarettes.
Is this why older people always like younger people with their hair shorter? And like they always love, like when you were a kid, you know, you got buzz cuts all the time because your parents, especially if your parents forced you. I forgot, maybe this is the I grew up on.
Muscular human with a camel's head. This new mascot would replace Old Joe and become Camel cigarettes' new marketing campaign in Europe. Through the 70s and 80s, Joe Camel was featured in magazines, billboards, and more. He was all
okay, hold up.
Europe. Through the 70s and 80s, Joe...
I'm not gonna lie, bro. I know he's bad. He was obviously promoting whatever, but let's talk about the outfit. He got the on though. Joe's fly as hell would have worked for me as a child. Like, he fly as hell. Hey, hold up. But ignoring like the propaganda, whatever, all this cigarette stuff, they knew what they was doing. He really do.
Camel was
He looks
featured
slick.
in
He does look
magazines,
slick.
billboards, and more. He was always shown in a variety of fun and entertaining situations with bold and bright
Drip
colors.
Camel.
He would only wear leather jackets or tuxedos and was usually accompanied by women. Joe
Damn,
Camel was killing it in
damn.
Europe and selling tons of Camel cigarettes, so
Damn.
RJ Reynolds knew they had to debut him worldwide. So, in the summer of 1988, RJ Reynolds introduced Joe Camel to the US as a part of their 75th anniversary of Camel cigarettes. Doing so, however, would eventually spark one of the biggest controversies in the history of marketing. It's important to note.
So was this just allowed, like, this didn't start in America, but like it was allowed in just other countries like that? Because he said they introduced it to America. It's crazy how different some countries, like, I should say governing, whatever you want to call it, it is. How it is. That's what I'm trying to say. You guys get what I say. You guys get what I'm saying. What am I talking about? Like, the fact that they really were just able to willy-nilly and advertise everywhere before coming to America was nuts.
Before moving forward, the state that the US was in when it came to cigarette advertising. The 50s and 60s were thriving decades for big tobacco, but the 80s and 90s were the polar opposite. More and more studies started to arise during these decades regarding the hazardous effects cigarettes had on humans. It seemed as if every day a new study would link cigarette use to lung cancer or some other disease. With that being said, the US government began cracking down on cigarette advertising to reduce the amount of people considering picking up smoking, especially
Like, by the way, it was like, from what I saw, it was like 30 years later. It says British. Where? It was like 30 years later, though. People don't know that. Like, they been knew about cigarettes' effects for like 30 years before they actually started stopping it.
young people.
Crazy.
So when Joe Camel entered the US advertising world in 1988, although it was technically
watching?
legal to use him in ads,
Too hard to
he was
explain.
immediately under the spotlight from US officials. However, from 1988 through 1990, Joe Camel hadn't had any issues running ads in the US. The cartoon was featured in magazines, on billboards, and more, just as he was in Europe. But people started to question the ethics of Joe Camel in 1991. Many were hypothesizing that RJ Reynolds was intentionally trying to target kids and get them to start smoking Camel cigarettes through Joe Camel's childlike look. As a result, many independent studies tested that theory, and what they found was truly horrifying. One study showed that upon surveying 229 preschoolers, nearly 30% of 3-year-olds and more than 90% of 6-year-olds correctly linked Joe Camel to a cigarette. In another
Oh, that's bad. That's bad. Preschoolers. And we were talking about how teens were bad. Advertising to teens. How does a 3-year-old even know? Can a 3-year-old even speak? What they say, 3-year-old? Gotta teach them young. Oh, that's sad. That's sad. They had no morals back then. And y'all think they really have morals now too? Hey, I'm just saying. Y'all think they really have morals now? Y'all think they got any better? Psh, we're the same human beings. We've gotten way worse, as a matter of fact.
30% of 3-year-olds and more than 90% of 6-year-olds correctly linked Joe Camel to a cigarette. In another study, young adolescents and adults were tested to see if they could correctly link Joe Camel to Camel cigarettes. It was found that more than 90% of the kids, but only 58% of the adults correctly named the brand associated with the cartoon character. The children also
How's that even possible? Isn't this something specifically meant for adults? I don't know, because this is targeted like directly to adults on their television screens or whatever, and ads on billboards. What can a 3-year-old do? Just stop using a pacifier. I don't understand.
rated the Joe
That's
Camel
bad though. That is bad. That shouldn't even be possible.
advertisements as much more appealing than every other cigarette brand tested against him. And these studies weren't even the worst of it. Another study found that Joe Camel had become nearly as recognizable to 6-year-olds as Mickey Mouse. This shocking discovery
No, they're cooked. Mickey Mouse? The figure for kids? That's impossible. I don't believe that. Hold on, let me hear that again.
become nearly as recognizable to 6-year-olds as Mickey.
Nearly? How much nearly? Because this is something like every kid knows Mickey Mouse to this day still. That is unfathomable. Where was they plastering these ads? Were they just plastering these ads on like preschoolers' cubbies? That doesn't even make any sense to me. On Nickelodeon? Yeah, cause they had Nickelodeon in the 60s. You got this. You You got this. I don't know. You don't use it, but you got this. They were for real putting these ads on Nick Jr. Bro, y'all are y'all good?
Mouse. This shocking discovery becomes more believable when you realize that Joe Camel also had a group of cartoon friends in the exact same fashion that Mickey Mouse did. While Mickey had
Damn.
friends like Minnie, Pluto, and Goofy, Joe Camel was seen accompanied by his friends, Josephine, Eddie, Floyd, Max, and Buster.
Bro, I'm sorry. I gotta say, these pictures are so cold. I'm sorry. I know it was bad, but why do these pictures go so hard? This is like why do these pictures go so hard? Bro, no wonder kids was like, wow, these is so cool or whatever. Look at them. Look at him, bro. This man is clean. Look at this man. And look at this dude. With the guitar? They dripped. I'm just saying, they're dripped out.
The idea that RJ Reynolds was advertising to kids was strengthened even further by a promotion they ran called Camel Cash. Camel Cash was essentially a Camel branded currency that allowed those who purchased Camel cigarettes to earn points, or C-notes. With
Wait,
C-notes,
what?
Camel
They had like, hold on.
smokers could obtain Joe Camel themed merchandise. The merchandise options included everything from Joe Camel branded t-shirts, baseball caps, watches, inflatable mattresses, and more. The problem was that many of these items and the system of points through which they were earned were especially attractive to young people.
So they were making legit toys. This is like something, bro. Does this not look like a section in the Scholastic Book Fair? Y'all remember the Scholastic Book Fair? Does this not look like the Scholastic Book Fair, and then you walk in and then you pay like money for different erasers and board games? Oh, lunch boxes? Is that a lunchbox? They know what they was doing. Cryptocurrency before the internet? Really was.
People. These are all items that kids would want, and the only way to get them was to buy Camel cigarettes. With all of this evidence stacking up against them, RJ Reynolds was
That's
pressured by
bad.
the public to end the Joe
I
Camel
think they thought, okay. No, I'm not gonna say, I was gonna say, I think they thought maybe the parents were gonna buy it and then give it to the kids, the toys or whatever, or board games, but
campaign,
there's
but they
no way.
refused and continued running their ads. However, a bombshell was about to be dropped on them when internal documents of RJ Reynolds' marketing plans from 1974 started to leak to the public. And these documents showed the true colors of the company. Quotes from these plans read such as, "Realistically, if our company is to survive and prosper over the long term, we must get our share of the youth market." Another quote from a top executive read, "In view of the need to reverse the preference for Marlboros among younger smokers, I wonder whether comic strip type copy might get a much higher readership among younger people than any other type of copy." Another
Bro, this hold on.
document warned, "Evidence is now available to indicate that the 14 to 18-year-old group is an increasing segment of the smoking population."
Yeah, GG's. This is what we saw in the beginning anyways. But I'm just, bro, this has to be happening now. And look, I'm not even naming one industry or one specific industry, but somewhere this is happening. This is happening in some industry they're writing down, and now it can be much more secure. You can make it much more secure if you wanted to.
RJ Reynolds must soon establish a successful new brand in this market if our position in the industry is to be maintained over the long term. And another memo read, "To ensure increased and longer term growth for Camel, the brand must increase its share penetration among the 14 through 24 age group, which have a new set of more liberal values and which represent tomorrow's cigarette business."
They kind of were wrong about that though. They kind of did get it.
These documents made it clear as day that attracting underage smokers had long been a top corporate objective for RJ Reynolds and Camel cigarettes. With that being said, a fire was ignited within US government officials and politicians. At the time,
I'm surprised they
Representative
actually
Henry
care. I'm
Waxman
surprised
compared
they
Joe
actually
Camel
care.
ads to the moral equivalent of a national campaign to drive drunk, just for the fun of it. President Bill Clinton went on record saying, "We must put tobacco ads like Joe Camel out of our children's reach forever." Parents and anti-smoking groups were furious alike.
This
So
is
the
surprising to
FTC
me.
finally stepped in and officially charged RJ Reynolds. While under the spotlight, RJ Reynolds denied Joe Camel was intended to be directed at children. The company maintained that Joe Camel's target audience was 29 through 49-year-old males and current Marlboro smokers. A spokesperson from RJ Reynolds said that, "It's not in our interest to have a campaign that encourages underage people to smoke, because that would greatly increase the chance that the government would step in and restrict our ability to communicate with the adult smoking market."
Isn't it crazy? Like, they basically just admitted they don't even care that they were advertising to kids. They were just like, I mean, we know we wouldn't want to do it because the government would step in. That's basically what they said. They said we we wouldn't want to do it, but I mean, if the government didn't have a chance to step in it, yeah, we would do it. We would do it. Let's be real. We would do it. That's exactly what they're saying. It's not our interest to have a campaign that encourages underage people to smoke because that would greatly increase the chance that the government will step in. This is so different. If some company did this now, like if Apple came out and were like, oh, we can't, or even TikTok, if they said that, like, oh, why would we spy on you? Like, why would we spy on you guys? The government would step in. It's like, bro, what?
However,
Sounds
it seemed that
trustworthy.
RJ Reynolds was not confident in that statement. The same year the FTC charged them, RJ Reynolds chose to end the Joe Camel campaign worldwide. The company asserted that the decision was purely strategic and not due to social or political pressure.
Alright.
And from that point on, Camel cigarettes
Alright,
shelved Joe
okay.
Camel, and in
Okay.
return brought back Old Joe, which can still be seen in Camel advertisements to this day.
If you are in a generation of Z, I would say millennial, whatever, you should have or knew not to. It was plastered on every single classroom not to. You know, maybe like the older like Gen X, boomers, whatever, they grew up in the generation where they got these targeted ads towards them. But if you are right now as W Zaza, that is not what Zaza is, bro. That's why I know some of y'all just be repeating tic-tac terms. That is not what that is. It is not the same thing. Cigarettes are not the same thing. If you smoke or vape, yeah, same thing. Same thing. Vaping. Vaping is a loser activity. I mean, it's like an entire thing. Point. I wouldn't even know why people would want to, because you'd be associated with being a vapor. And people are gonna be like, oh, you vape? Like, that's gross. People are just gonna say that.